All right, everyone, it's week one, developing your idea. Today, we're going to focus on what your business is all about. What are you selling? Who are you selling to? How are you selling? Is your business viable? We're going to get to all of that as we work through developing your idea. Often people have a business idea and they think it sounds like a great idea, but they really haven't thought it through. For example, I have two kids and they are very active kids and they are, constantly, I just spend so much of my time driving my kids around. I've always thought that an Uber for kids was a brilliant idea. Like I just couldn't believe nobody else has thought of this. Why is it not happening yet? You call up the Uber app, you tell it you need to get your kid to soccer practice, and boom, you get 2 hours of your life back. I really just think that that would be an amazing, business. But if you really think about it, most parents are probably not going to be super keen on putting their kid in the back of a car with a stranger. So even though, I think it's $1 million idea and it would be amazing for me, and I think, it sounds so great. At the end of the day, I haven't been able to figure out how to actually make it work and find people that would use it, right? Even as good of the idea as I think it is, I'm not going to send my kids with a stranger in a car either. So, you may have a great idea and you just can't believe no one's ever thought of it. But when you take the time to truly develop that idea and think through everything, really think it through, figure out who's going to buy it, how you'll deliver it, and all of that, you may find that's why no one else has done it before, because you determine that it's not really a viable product or it's not really a viable idea. So, more than likely, you'll refine it to get it to where it's viable, right? It may not be viable up front, but as you start to think through the options, you may tweak it and you may refine it, and then you come up with an idea that is viable and will be something that people will buy, right? So, to so let's start with what you're selling, right? This may seem like the simplest question that we will answer throughout the whole program, but you'd be surprised. What are you actually selling? Is it a product or a service? Are you selling hourly consulting or are you selling project work? Do you want to offer different colors, different sizes? Are you going to offer a wide variety of products or just one standard product? There's no right or wrong answer, but it's just a much more complex question than just deciding that you're going to sell X, Y, or Z, right? So let's start with what you're selling. Are you selling a product or are you selling a service? Is it a physical good that someone will buy? A product, right? A physical, tangible good. Or is it a service that you're going to be providing to your customer, right? So an example could be if I'm in the t-shirt business, I could actually be selling a product or a service. If I've decided that I'm going to sell t-shirts with funny sayings on them, then I'm selling a product, right? The t-shirt is the physical good that I'm going to sell to my customer. Now, if instead I decide that I'm going to provide the service of screen printing on those t-shirts, right? But my customer is going to bring me the shirt. They're going to bring me the vinyl that I need to complete the project, but I'm going to actually complete the screen printing. Well, now I'm providing a service. I'm no longer selling the t-shirt itself. I'm selling the service to complete the screen printing. So, the first important question for you to ask yourself is, are you selling a product or a service? Or potentially, are you selling both, right? Some businesses will sell a product, but then they'll sell us the services that are complementary to those products. So as you've determined now, if you're selling a product, you're selling a service, or maybe you're selling both, now we've got to further define, like, what is it that I'm selling, okay? So let's say, I'm going to use a different example now. Let's say I'm selling consulting services. I need to decide if I'm going to be selling an hour of my time, or maybe I decide I'm going to sell on a project basis. So for example, I'm an interior designer. Okay, so that's the consulting that I'm going into. I'm going to be a designer and I need to decide if I'm going to charge my customers an hourly rate for my time. So if I pick up the phone and I talk to them about, a couch that they want to order or pillows or colors, that time would be billed. If I go to a meeting at their house to help them select paint colors, then I would track that time and I would bill them for that. Okay, so essentially my customers would understand that I have an hourly rate and any time that I spend on their project would be billed to them at that rate. Alternatively, I could charge a project rate. If I'm doing a master bedroom remodel, for example, I could charge a fixed rate of $1,000 for my design consulting. I would understand that on some clients, I may end up with a higher profit margin because they were really easy to work with. They answered my questions on time. They didn't really drag things out. I just didn't spend as many hours on that project, so I might make more money on that client. On another client, however, I may end up with an hourly rate of $10 because they took so much of my time and I only had that, set project fee that I was going to charge. So this would be something to consider as I determine how I want to charge for my services. If I, do decide to charge a project rate, then I could set up a fee schedule for each room of the house and list out the rate for each room, right? So you've got bathrooms, you got, master bedroom, you've got the kitchen, you've got everything listed and you've got the room and then you've got the rate that you're going to charge, right? And then if a client, if they say, okay, well, I want you to do the entire house, well, then I'd probably have one set fee for that, right? So if you're hiring me to come in and design one room or just a couple of rooms, then there would be individual room prices or project prices for those rooms. But if you're going to hire me to design your whole house, then I probably have a set fee for that, maybe based on the size of the house or the type of the house that I'm going to be designing. For other services, you may decide that you're going to charge a monthly retainer, right? So maybe we're not in interior design anymore, but, we're consulting on a specific, marketing consulting, for example. And so I may decide that, hey, for the services I'm providing for you, I am going to charge you a monthly retainer of $2,000. And it's a fixed rate that you're going to charge for a defined scope of work. So you're going to define a scope of work and say, this is the fee I'm going to charge you every month for that. With products, you may charge a specific rate for each product, but you may then also offer like bundles or discounts. So for example, if someone buys product 1, you may give them a 25% discount if they also purchase product 2. Right? Or you may give them you may say, this bundle of products is a certain price instead of each individual product being sold separately. Ultimately, you just need to decide how you're going to package up your services or your products and what that's going to look like when you sell it to your customer. So what are you truly selling to them? You may have decided, well, I'm selling consulting services, and you think you've answered the question, but at the end of the day, you've got to decide, but how are you selling those consulting services? Is it an hourly rate? Is it a project rate? Is it a monthly retainer? Or is it something else? So now if you're selling a product versus a service, then you may have to determine how many variations of the product you're going to sell, right? So let's go back to the t-shirt example. If I'm going to sell t-shirts with funny sayings on them, right? I need to determine how many different colors I'm going to sell. Right? So am I just selling green t-shirts with a funny saying on them, or am I going to sell 72 different colors of t-shirts, right? So how many different colors am I going to sell? When I go online and shop, I often see a shirt and I think, oh, that's a really cute shirt. And I'm going to go, see what other colors they have. And sometimes you look, and I do this on Amazon a lot, you look and you see it comes in 2 colors or comes in 32 colors, right? So you've got to think about, okay, how many different colors am I going to choose to sell of my product, right? Or my t-shirt. Next, you've got to decide, same example, t-shirts, how many different sizes, right? Are we going to do child sizes, adult sizes? Are we going to offer extra large sizes? So, the more colors you offer and then the more sizes that you offer, right? You're going to have more and more products, right? So now we're not just selling a t-shirt, we're selling many different t-shirts and many different products. Finally, I need to decide, since I'm doing funny t-shirts with a saying on them, right, with funny sayings on them, I need to decide how many different sayings and designs am I gonna sell, right? Do I have just one really, really funny, catchy saying, and that's my whole company, and I'm gonna have this one saying on a shirt, and I'm gonna have just lots of different colors, but it's gonna say the same thing? Or do I have 100 different sayings that I'm gonna put on 100 different colors of shirts? Okay. So with products, you can quickly get to hundreds of options just for a single product type. So if I'm in this t-shirt business and I've got 3 colors, I've got 6 sizes, and I've got 5 sayings, for example, I'd have 90 different products, right? So I need to think through that, keeping that many product variations, that's a lot of work. It's difficult to do that in a product business. And so I've got to think about, as I'm starting out, where do I want to start? Right? Does it make sense to start with just one t-shirt and, one saying and one type of t-shirt, maybe just one color? Does it make sense to do that? Because you need to have different sizes when you're doing clothing. And so I just need to think through what makes the most sense for me to start with. Or am I just going to go all in and I'm going to have 90 different products off the bat and I'm just going to get started with that? So again, seems like simple questions to answer is, what am I selling? Now we've got another thing we're thinking about here is, how many different variations are we going to be selling? So in addition to the variations of a product type, then you need to determine if you're going to sell different types of products, right? So if I'm in the t-shirt business, am I just selling shirts, right? Or am I going to sell cups? Maybe, am I going to sell hats? Am I going to sell lots of different products that have funny sayings? So maybe my business is the funny saying business, and I'm going to sell all types of different products with these funny sayings on them, right? Or am I just going to be in the t-shirt business? So you need to really think about the different types of products that you're going to be selling. And also, will you be selling products and services? So, often a company will sell products, but then they'll also sell the services that complement those products. So for an example, an auto mechanic, they're selling you the parts that are going to fix your car, but they're also selling you the service that is them fixing your car with those parts. So as you think through your business, you've got to understand, is my business in the business of selling products, or am I in the business of selling services, or both? And the reason it's important to think through these two items and, what am I really selling, is because it's going to affect how you do lots of other things down the road as you get through the process of developing your idea and getting your business set up. Okay, so throughout this program, we're going to use a hypothetical business called Bootcamp LLC. And we're gonna work through the concepts using this hypothetical business. And this will help you to see, how to apply what you're learning and what we're talking about. And then you can take that information and apply it to your business concept as well. We'll use various examples throughout the program, the t-shirt business, the interior designer. So I want you all to see different types of businesses and find a business that is similar to yours, or at least follows some of the same, types of products or customers, or looks at things the same way. But we'll always come back to Bootcamp LLC to complete the business development process throughout these 6 weeks. So at the end of the 6 weeks, you'll have worked through each concept as it applies to this business. So I wanted to talk through now what Bootcamp is selling, right? So we have decided at Bootcamp LLC, our idea and what we're developing here is we are selling personal training programs. We're going to sell individualized programs for our clients with real-time virtual training. So, if you are an individual who really wants to train with a trainer, you really want a physical trainer to work with, but you just can't get to the gym, it's just not convenient for you, there's not one close to your house, they don't have good times, whatever the reason might be that it's hard for you to do that, this is kind of giving you your own personal trainer in your own home, delivered virtually, right? So our program is going to create these individualized programs for our clients that sign up, and then we're going to give that real-time virtual training. So this isn't a video that you go push play or you stream, after the fact. This is me coming into your home via some sort of virtual method and actually doing the training with you. Clients can sign up for a 6-week, 12-week, or 6-month plan. So when we talk about what are you actually selling? Are you selling an hour of your time? Are you selling a program fee? We have decided that we're selling a 6-week plan, a 12-week plan, or a 6-month plan is what we're going to sell to our customers. And then we're selling a monthly subscription service with various workout plans as another option. So if you want the personalized program and you want to, have someone work with you and train with you every day, then that's the plan, the 6-week, 12-week, or 6-month plan. But you can also decide to sign up just for a monthly subscription where you get access to all these different programs that have been developed for our various clients along the way. All right, so after you determine what you're selling, then you need to figure out who you're selling to. So, we've determined, what we're selling, whether we're the t-shirt company, whether we're the interior designer, Bootcamp LLC, but now we need to know who we're selling to. And the answer is not everyone everywhere. Okay, businesses that are most successful, they define their customer and they target a specific demographic. They are not trying to sell to everyone. So, first you should determine if you're going to sell to businesses or individuals. Okay, some companies will sell to both. Some companies will be, we're selling to businesses and they'll also be selling to individual consumers, but most are set up to sell to one or the other. Okay, B2B means business to business. So you're a business selling to another business. And then B2C means that you're a business and you're selling to individual consumers. So it's likely, if you're selling t-shirts with funny sayings, then you're likely selling to consumers, right? However, you may have decided that you want to sell t-shirts to businesses instead. Right? So maybe instead of selling a specific t-shirt with funny sayings on them, you're offering this service to businesses where you will print t-shirts for them with their logos. Okay, so in that case, you would be a B2B business instead of a B2C business. Many companies will then do both, right? They're going to sell to consumers, but then they're also going to sell to businesses. An interior designer, they may choose to only work with businesses, or they may choose to focus on individual homeowners. So you may say, I'm only going to work to design office spaces. In that case, you're going to be B2B. If you instead want to work only on home design and remodels, then you're going to be B2C. However, you may work with both, right? You may choose to work with both businesses and individuals, which is perfectly fine. So you want to, think through who you want to work with, but then as you're trying to decide, am I going to work with businesses or consumers, you want to determine if there are any significant differences to working with one or the other. Because if there are significant differences to working with a business, for example, versus working with a consumer, then is it going to create inefficiencies in your business to try to service both of them? The other thing you might think about is, do you prefer to work with individuals over businesses or businesses over individuals? Okay, so you think through who do we want to work with? Do we want to work with businesses? Do we want to work with individual consumers? Or do we think that we both want to work with both and we think our product and our service is designed to be able to sell to both? So after you determine if you're selling to consumers or you're selling to businesses or both, then you need to further refine who you want to sell to. So for example, if you're selling to businesses, do you have a particular type of business that you want to work with? You could define your customer as any small business that has less than 50 employees, for example. Or you might say, well, we're only going to work with dental offices. You might even define your customer by their physical location. So for example, you're going to say, we're only going to work with customers within a certain city or a certain regional area. You might look at economic status, right? So you're selling a $250 pair of jeans, you're likely not marketing to the cost conscious. You're going to be looking more for the affluent customer. So, the most successful businesses, they refine their customer. They don't try to sell all things to all people. I hear that all the time. Someone will say, you ask someone, who's your target customer? Who can I introduce you to? Well, everyone, everybody should buy my product, right? Well, that's not going to be realistic that everyone is in the market for your product. And the more refined your target customer is, then the easier it is to design your services, your systems, and your products to fit their needs, right? You achieve efficiencies and economies of scale by providing consistent services or delivering your products in a consistent manner. And the more refined your target customer is, the easier that you can do that. So think through, are you going to sell to consumers? Are you going to sell to businesses? Are you going to sell to governments? Are you going to sell to nonprofits? Are you going to sell to all of the above? Right? And there are certain products that can have a much larger target market. However, then you want to think, do I want a large company or do I want a small company? Do I need affluent consumers or do I want cost-conscious consumers? Who is it that I am selling to and what does that target market look like? Once you get that defined, it's going to help you to refine those services and those products that you're going to sell to your customer. So let's look at Bootcamp LLC. We have determined that we are selling to individual consumers, right? We do not have an intent at this point in time to sell to businesses. So we are thinking our customer is individuals in middle to upper class neighborhoods. We think they need to have, they need to have some disposable income that they can spend on a training program. We're looking for individuals who care about their health and their fitness, right? We don't want pros. We want individuals who they need a trainer, but they care. They're health conscious. They care about it, but they're not pros. They want some help. They're kind of just average Joes who care about their health and fitness. And then we need individuals who are somewhat technologically savvy, right? This isn't going to be a program where we're knocking on their door and we're coming inside to train them. So we need to make sure that they can, they understand how to get content via digital methods, and they understand how to use a phone, a smartphone, how to use a computer, how to use a smart TV, those different avenues that they might be using. All right, so now we know who we're selling to, right? We know what we're selling, we know who we're selling to, but now we need to think how we're going to sell. So if you're selling a product, think about, will you be selling through a website, or will you have a retail location, or will you have both? You may decide that you just want to make products and then sell them to a distributor who will determine where your ultimate customers will purchase those products, right? So you're going to sell to a distributor, they're going to go out and sell to everyone else, okay? Depending on the type of product or service that you're going to sell, you need to decide if you're going to use sales reps to sell your product, or if you're better served by using digital marketing to drive that traffic to your website. Right? So if I'm, if I'm thinking that I'm selling a product that needs to get in front of those distributors, or needs to get in front of buyers at certain, companies, at big retailers, then I may need sales reps to go and sell those products. However, if I'm just selling on my website and I'm going to put all my products on my website, then I'm not going to spend time or money on developing a sales rep. I'm going to spend my money on digital marketing to drive traffic to my website. Okay. So, for the t-shirt business, you might decide you're going to set up booths at craft fairs, farmers markets, other multi-vendor events. That may be how you plan to get out to market with your t-shirt business, because you don't want to go and, sign a long-term lease and open up a retail location that's in one spot. You think that, hey, your market and the people you've decided to sell to, they go to these craft shows, they go to these multi-vendor events. So that's where you're going to set up. For the interior design business, you might choose to make connections with builders and remodelers, and you give them a cut of your sales if they refer their customers to you. So you are not having to go and sell to each individual that you're going to ultimately work with. You're selling to the builders and to the, remodelers, and saying, hey, if you refer this business to me, I will give you a referral fee or a certain percentage of that revenue. So, think about where your target market is and how they would typically buy your type of product or service. So you might, you might even decide that you're going to innovate the way your product or service is delivered. And that's what's unique about what you are selling, right? So if when Uber became Uber, right, it wasn't a unique, riding to, getting a ride somewhere, right, is not unique. Taxis have been around forever, but the way Uber decided to deliver the service was through an app that you can call up the taxi to where you are, and they provide, a driver there to you with their own personal car. So just, the way they decided to sell that service to you was different than the way taxi cabs used to be sold to you. That service was sold to you. So, you just need to think about what is the best method and avenue for you to sell your product, and how to get in front of your customers, the customers that you're going to be selling to. So for Bootcamp, we've decided that we're going to be using online or digital delivery. So we have plans to develop a phone app for that, you download the app to your phone, and that is how you're going to be able to get your content delivered from your personal trainer. And that personal trainer is going to show up on that app and live perform the training with you and work with you through the steps. We'll have a website so that if you want to utilize your computer instead of the phone app, that will work the same way as well. And then we plan to have a YouTube channel as well. And the YouTube channel is going to be there for delivering free content that we're using more from a marketing perspective, as well as just supplemental content that our customers can use. So that's how we've determined that we're going to be selling our services to our customer. All right, so we are at the point now where we need to decide, what do we need to develop this service, produce this product, or deliver our product or service, to sell to our customers? Really, what do we need to just run our business? This is where we start to get a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of what you're going to need to be able to actually make this business run. So, are you going to need to hold inventory? Are you selling a product? For example, the t-shirts with the funny sayings. Are you going to need to hold inventory that you can, as soon as someone orders, you're able to get that order out to them, right? If so, do you need a warehouse? Depending on how much inventory you're going to hold, you may need a warehouse. Or you may say, hey, we're going to be small enough that I can just put it in my basement and that's all I'll need. But you need to think through, am I going to have inventory? And if so, where's it going to go? Do I need warehouse space? You may decide instead that I'm just going to produce my products as the items are ordered. Okay, so when an order comes in, I'll produce it, I'll send it out. That way I don't have to hold a bunch of inventory. And your business can evolve over time. So you may decide to start without needing inventory, knowing that at some point in time you are going to need to hold inventory. You need to decide, do you need special equipment to make your product? Is there technology and software that you're going to need? Will you have a need for staff? So if you're getting started out, are you starting out as an interior designer and it's going to be you and you're going to provide the service and you don't really need staff? You're not planning, you're going to take the phone calls, you're going to do the design work, and you're going to invoice your customers, you're going to just manage everything? Or do you think, hey, no, I think right away I'm going to need some staff? Again, maybe you don't need staff right away, but you plan to need staff, as you grow and as you scale your business. And depending on that answer, you need to decide, do you need office space? Are you going to go look for office space, or are you planning to work out of your home? Are you going to be out and about with your customers and working at customer sites so you don't really need an office space? Or do you need to have like a showroom that your customers can come in and meet you and look at samples and you've got a space for them? So you just really need to think through all the different things that your business is going to need to be able to get up and running. Okay, this may not be what you need ultimately at the end of the day, but if you think you're going to start a t-shirt business and you're going to be selling these t-shirts, but you don't think about the fact that you need to get the equipment to complete the screen printing, then when you go to start and you open your doors day one, you can't make any product because you don't have the right equipment. So you need to think through all the pieces that you're going to need to get your business up and running and to be able to produce your product or to be able to provide your service to your customers. So Bootcamp LLC, we primarily need technology to begin with. So our primary business will be building an app that will be used to deliver the content. We plan to start small with this, and we're going to just build out the basic features, developing further as the business gets off the ground. So when we first start off, basic features, make sure that personal trainer can get into the living room of our customer virtually and via the app. And then as we grow, we will develop further. We're also going to have a YouTube channel for uploading workout programs, which is easy to create because it's already there for us. We don't anticipate we have a need for office space or warehouse space. Our personal trainers are going to be virtual, so they're going to be from all over. There's a chance as our business grows that we would need office space later, maybe for our administrative staff, but we don't anticipate needing that early on in the business. So for Bootcamp LLC, it's primarily technology is what we're going to need. All right, we're almost finished with developing your idea. However, who you need for your business is a key component to the development phase. Will you need sales reps to sell your services? Who are you planning to use to produce your product? Will it be you, or will you hire, production staff? Will you outsource your production, or will you hire that in-house? Who do you plan to handle your administrative tasks? In any business, there are accounting tasks, there's IT, there's operational things that need to be done. Who are you planning to have do that? In addition to, thinking through who you need to just run your business operations, there's some key partner resources that you need to find for your business as well. All businesses need an attorney. It's money well spent, and you need to make sure that you are hiring somebody that's qualified in small business, that's qualified in your type of business or your industry. You need a CPA. Again, look for someone that's qualified in your industry and has worked with companies like yours before. And then everybody needs a great banker. Build a relationship with a banker. You've got to have somewhere to put your money, and it's a much better relationship to have with someone that cares about your business than just a bank that doesn't even know who you are. Meet multiple people, find the right fit for your business. It's important to build a relationship with your attorney and your CPA and your banker. It costs you money to get these resources and to have these partners, but it's money well spent. Getting your business set up correctly at the start, addressing issues promptly as they arise, they're going to help keep your business running smoothly. And it's going to help you avoid the pitfalls really that often they cause significant issues to the sustainability of a company. There's so many companies that I have worked with over the years that had they just gotten set up right, had they just spent a little bit of money up front to ask the questions and to make sure they were doing things correctly, they would have avoided significant headaches, money loss, and even business failure at the end of the day because they just didn't know what they didn't know. So, thinking through who you need in your business is really a key part to this development phase and really making sure that your idea is valuable. If you are going to be selling a service and you determine that, your market can stand $50 per hour for your service, but you realize that the people that you need to provide that service are going to cost you $75 an hour, it's not a viable service to offer, right? So you've got to really think through who are all the people that I need, and how am I going to build out that team, both internally and externally for the business. So in Bootcamp LLC, we need a variety of people. We need programmers to develop the platform. So that's really key for us because that's really, the basis of our business is our platform that we're going to be delivering that content. We're going to start small, and we're hoping, we'll get the app up and running quickly, and we'll add additional features as we grow. So our goal is to get started as quickly as we can with as few programmers as we can, and then we'll continue to add that, develop that team as we grow and as we need to, keep up with our demand. We'll need personal trainers that will develop and deliver the programs to our customers. So the trainers, they're going to be independent contractors, and they will, we'll assign them to the new customers based on their availability and their customer load, and maybe their specialty if they've got a certain type of specialty or types of customers they want to work with. We plan to use an outsourced marketing company to handle the marketing. That'll, initially we think that works best for us because it allows us to find a company that's focused in the fitness industry and just help us get the most return on our investment. We plan to use an outsourced accounting company initially to handle our accounting activities. This just makes sure that we keep up on the compliance, we have accurate data to help us analyze the business performance, and we just don't think we need someone full-time to start. We will definitely use an attorney to help us set up our LLC and to develop our operating agreement. That's really key in any new business, is making sure that operating agreement is really solid, especially if you have partners. And then, this helps us make sure we have a resource as well for when our business moves forward. So our attorney will help us get set up, but then they're going to be there along the way. We're going to consult with a CPA on the best tax structure for our business for the setup phase, but then we also will utilize them to prepare our tax returns and to consult with as the business grows and moves forward. And then we're going to talk to other business owners that we know to find the best bank for us to use. So, we know we've got to put our money somewhere, and we want to make sure we build a good relationship with our banker to help us as we move forward. And we're going to have different needs as the business grows. So we want a banker that's really going to work with us on that. All right, finally, what will you call it? You might think that naming the business would be the first thing that you would do. But you really want to work through your idea first. You want to determine what you're truly selling, refine your target market, really understand your business before you settle on a name. As you work through and develop your business, you may switch gears. You may end up selling something completely different than what you had originally planned. And once you've worked through your idea development, then, you'll be able to choose the right name that is good for your business and really speaks to your customer. As you think through the name, there's some things to consider. First, is it easy to understand? You really want to choose a name that's easy to pronounce. You want people to be able to say it. It's also, it's helpful if the name is descriptive. It's not a requirement, but it can help in your sales and marketing if your business name, it tells the customer what you're selling. You may consider using a name that's unique, although it's not always easy to do that. And finally, the practical question to answer is your name available? So, I like to start by checking the web address that I want. If I'm thinking of a business name, I want to determine, okay, is the website address available, or is some modification of the website address available? This way I can determine, if I need to change the name because somebody already had a website. If I think my name is really a great fit, but somebody's already got a website that's running that's selling either something similar to mine or something different, I don't want people, I don't want to do a really good job at marketing and then have people going to someone else's site. So I may want to change the name. Now, today, with the way marketing works and the way, Google works and social media, it's not as important as it used to be to that your website, is easy to get to with the name of your business. But it does help. So if you can check to see, hey, is that web address available to me? That's going to be, to me, that's the first thing I like to check before I decide on a name. And then once I do that, I want to check with the Secretary of State to determine if the name's available for me to legally register. Different states have different requirements on registering names. Some require that you register what they call fictitious names. So, for example, if I'm going to call my business, Huntington Enterprises, I can do that so long as it's available. But then if I want to call it, Bootcamp, as my actual business that people are going to go to, then I may need to register that as a fictitious name. Some states require it, some states do not. So, but I need to look at both of those things. One is the LLC name available to me, and then also is the fictitious name available to me if I'm going to go by a different name than how I'm setting up the company. It might be necessary to check trademarks as well. So that's going to be more important if you're going to be selling more of like a national or global, product or brand. If you're going to grow outside your local area, then trademarks become more important because, if you're a restaurant in a certain geographical area and you happen to have the same name as a restaurant that is 1,000 miles away, the likelihood that that's ever going to be an issue is pretty slim. But then if you decide to go national, go regional, and you start to grow and don't realize that, you get into now that market that's 1,000 miles away and they trademarked that name, then you're going to run into issues. So you want to think about it if you're kind of your long-term plan with your business. If your long-term plan is to grow pretty significantly, then you might want to look at trademarks as well. So, when you're thinking about your name, be creative, but not too creative, right? You want people to remember your business name. You want them to be able to find you again after they've heard it. So, you think of something that fits your business, that tells people who you are, and that's you. But just make sure that you're really thinking about people being able to find you and people being able to say your name. So, as we've already talked about, Bootcamp LLC, we came up with that name. We thought it was descriptive. We think it's easy to understand. People can say it, they can spell it, and it was available. So that's how we came up with Bootcamp LLC. All right, it's homework time. Throughout the program, we are going to have a worksheet that goes along with each week's content. And this is really just going to help you to think through the concepts that we've talked about and write down your ideas. Actually work through the setup of your business as we work through this. So if you haven't been working through it as we've been going over the content, then it's time to complete your week 1 worksheet. Think about each area that we've discussed, document your decisions. If you get stuck, ask your friends, ask your colleagues, ask other trusted advisors what they think. If you're going through and you thought you knew what you were going to sell and you knew what your product was, and then after, working through some of this and learning some of this, you think, gosh, maybe that's not what I want to sell. Talk it through with people that you trust and that you value their opinion. You can also come back to this worksheet or a specific area. If you're stuck in a specific area, come back to that later. Move on, work through the rest of it, and then you can come back to that later, because you might have gotten everything else done, but you just can't figure out what you want to call your business yet. That's okay. We're going to be continuing to work through the program, and then that name may come to you. So work through what you can, and then come back to the rest of it as you work through the program. All right, guys, we finished week 1, and this week was an important first step to getting your business up and running. You should now have a clear idea of what your business is selling, who you are serving, and really just what you need to operate your business. So I hope you found that the information was valuable, and that you really were able to work through the development of your business at this first stage. But please don't hesitate to reach out if you could use some additional support or you have any questions. Please reach out before you move on. Next week's session is going to focus on the legal and operational foundation that you will need to set your business up for success long term. So I'll see you there.